Special Ed Mom Survival Guide: How to Prevail in the Special Education Process and Discover Lifelong Strategies for You and Your Child. Written by Bonnie Landau, Special Ed Mom, Educational Consultant, and Special Education Advocate. Narrated by Bonnie Landau. Prologue. Start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. Francis of Assisi. Your son's brain function is severely abnormal. I recommend you begin saving for his group home care as an adult. My mind was numb. I tried to absorb the words. I didn't want to look at my husband sitting on the couch beside me. I did not want to lose it here in the neuropsychologist's office. Look at him, and I would cry. I tried to hold it together. I pushed back the tears that began to seep. Did she really say that? He would never be normal? We had come to this doctor, a UCLA-trained neuropsychologist, in hopes she could shed some light on her son's unusual cognitive function. He had a strange array of symptoms, and he didn't seem to fit into any diagnostic box. As she spoke those words, I realized I had had an entirely different expectation for the outcome of this meeting. I thought she would say he was a bright child who just had a different way of thinking. He definitely had some cognitive challenges, but I was certain she would recommend some ways those could be fixed. I could not take in the thought of saving for group home care. I listened anxiously while she gave her justification for diagnosing him PDD and OS. She explained in detail that he did not fit the symptoms for autism. Based on his testing, he did not have all the criteria for that diagnosis. At least that I agreed with. She just didn't know where else to put him, so she put him into the catch bucket of pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. At a minimum, she recommended a one-on-one aide in a general education class. At best, he should be placed in a special school for severely delayed children. She was certain he would never be able to function at a normal level, and we should not have an expectation that he would improve. She basically left us with this thought: your son is severely impaired, and nothing can be done to help him. I left her office feeling like I had been punched in the stomach. I had a son whose brain did not function properly. It was not what I had dreamed of, and I had no idea how I was going to cope with this. I had many dramas in my life, but nothing ever felt like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. I went to pick the kids up at Nadia's house, our longtime babysitter/daycare lady. She asked me how the appointment went. I tried to tell her. The words would not come. I fell into the nearest chair, and the tears flooded forward. I sobbed from the deepest recesses of my heart. I sobbed as she stood, worried for me as much as for my son. When I finally choked out the words, she said he would never be normal. Nadia shook her head in disagreement. Bonnie, I have worked with kids for decades. He is normal. Do not listen to her. I tried to smile and muster some agreement, but instead resumed the agonizing sobs. Nadia had told me for years how bright he was, and that he would grow up just fine. But in that moment, I struggled to believe. My boy walked over and put his head on my shoulder, as he always did when he saw me crying. I looked at my angelic child and wondered what God had in store for him. Then I cried even more. For 3 more days, the river of tears fell. I felt as if I was in mourning. Nadia's words echoed in my mind, and I had to reach way deep down into my inner strength to find a thread of belief in them. When the biggest shock had worn off, I finally did find it. I decided to give up the tears and grab that thread of hope. Nadia was not the first person to tell me he would be okay. I remember my dear friend Melody, a child development specialist, who explained that our son was smart yet different. He would find his rhythm, and one day I would see just how fine he is. There was also Christina, a preschool teacher who babysat him 5 days a week for a couple years, and always reinforced how clever he is, despite his struggle to communicate. I remember his occupational therapist, Silka, who always reminded me that he would be okay. We just needed to continue with therapies that brought improvement. And I could never forget David Garcia, a learning specialist who said over and over that everything our son was challenged with was fixable. Most of all, it was my mom who encouraged me to seek the answers and find solutions, no matter what anybody said. She made me believe I could help him, even when other specialists were reluctant to give me hope. My intuition agreed with them all, even though for a moment that neuropsychologist had caused me to lose faith. In my heart, I knew that someday my son would be okay. This book is everything I learned while proving we were all right.